And Dingena Peddie-Theunisse, I want to bring you in on this one, because as a representative from a large recruiter bringing people into the wind industry, you know intimately what the key factors that transitioning workers should consider in addition to safety. Can you tell us your thoughts on those?
Yes, sure. Thanks, Rolf, for having me here as a panelist. Yeah, I think the answer is quite lengthy, I must say, because there are so many different factors and so many different areas in which you need professionals in the wind sector. So in building and maintaining a wind farm. But I thought I would just add some key factors out of it. If you look, for example, offshore, it's very much case by case. But if you look in offshore support, for example, you have marine support, survey, ROV, those parts, they're quite transferable. So you have already your skills, you have your competence, you have your technical expertise. It is really the platform that's different. So you go between oil and gas and wind, but the basis is the same of what is expected from an AB or from a rigger or from a officer, for example, or master. If you look at survey and ROV, there are many similarities. And again, you're doing the same competence and technical expertise. It's really the safety which is different. And for example, you have software solutions which are different. Now, I must say, many oil and gas workers know how to deal with different softwares because many operators and contractors have different software, so they know how to adapt. But it is something different which you need to learn. So there's definitely a factor which you have to take in consideration if you go to renewables. ROV the same. I think a big factor is the team's dynamics. The teams are a bit smaller in renewables in general than in oil and gas. So it's your team consists of several different parts more than one singular team, for instance, in an ROV team. If you go more in the direction of offshore management, I would say there you have a bit of a difference here and there. So if you look at, well, let's see, foundation, positioning, installation, so really the heavy lift side, that is, in our experience, quite transferable. You see that the adaptability there is quite fast. If you go more into the connection of the platform, there you really need your electrical knowledge. So there's quite a bit to learn should you want to transit there, and that's to take into account, because you come from a sector where you know a lot, so you have to go into a sector where you know then a lot less. So that's a bit of a transfer, so to say. However, from oil, gas to renewables, we're all used on an equal level to adhere to the highest safety standards, to be motivated and to take the complexity of the work into consideration. So that is quite the same. I would want to say that what we see quite often in oil and gas transition, that I think is where you're quite used to, is that oil and gas times from home is like 3 to 4 weeks or a little bit longer, or in renewables in the beginning it was a bit shorter. In offshore support, 1 to 2 weeks. Now that we're moving to fields more offshore, like 125k for Doggerbank or something, that means that some of the providers would like you to stay on board a bit longer. That is maybe more easy from an oil and gas background than if you come in new, where you're not used so much to being offshore for an extended time. I also think that people in renewables, where there's a bit of an attitude thing, is that, and I think Peter already touched on this, it's more a conscious decision. People have several motivations to join renewables, wherein one is definitely how to take part and what is your part in the renewable stage. That doesn't say that there's a difference in the height of motivation, but there might be a different approach in how you got into the industry. So that you will see different types of people coming together with different considerations in why they're joining the industry. Almost there, if you don't mind.
Thanks, a little bit. Very useful.
Okay, yeah. If you look to more like procurement functions or like the onshore functions that will stay onshore, the transition we notice is also quite okay. A safety, HSE advisors, therein it very much depends on in which aspect they are involved. But in procurement, for example, you see that companies like Vattenfall, etc., they train a lot in-house, and the competence and technical expertise is there, but the actual wind knowledge is there, trained a lot. Instead, project managers, I must say, what we experience is that which is interesting, is not that much the transition between oil and gas and renewables, but it's more the transition between, if it's been a project manager that's been onshore a lot and is first time dealing with offshore, it is a bit difficult because all of a sudden you've got vessels, you got weather, you got an ROV will take a certain time to go to the bottom. So that takes a bit of time. How do you take it into account? So there lies a little bit of work to do. And I think the biggest difference is wind technicians, for example, because therein comes really the part where we see it is a bit more challenging and we have to do a bit more work because it is very electrically based. So you've got a very different group, and there's quite a bigger request to get the qualification like electrical engineering. But therein also lies a lot of flexibility, because if you look, for example, to a let's say car mechanic, they also are nowadays very electrically trained. So with flexibility, you do get there, but it does take a bit more effort from our point of view, at least, how we experience it.